Alexander the Great is probably one of the most important people in history. His conquests not only changed the history of ancient Greece, but also the political situation in the Middle East for centuries to come. Having become king of Macedonia in 336 BC, he started a campaign against the Persian Empire, which eventually led to the collapse of the Persian Empire in 330 BC. He also conquered Egypt, becoming Pharaoh of Egypt, and later he also conquered parts of India. The conquests of Alexander the Great were vast. Nevertheless, it should be questioned whether the empire of Alexander was actually an empire, since his realm was more or less the result of his own conquests in the Middle East, but it lacked any form of a political structure or a political connection. Therefore, it is questionable whether the realm of Alexander the Great was actually an empire. Alexander died in 323 BC, leaving the empire, or the realm, to his ill-minded half-brother Philip III and his little son Alexander IV. Both kings were too weak to hold the empire Alexander had conquered together, and this eventually led to the collapse of the empire of Alexander the Great, and the generals of Alexander divided the empire among themselves, establishing smaller kingdoms like Ptolemaic Egypt or the Seleucid Empire. Nevertheless, there is a Greek author called Diodorus who tells us about the last plans of Alexander, which would have probably been executed had Alexander not died before. Perdiccas, one of Alexander's generals, was informed about these plans and presented them to the soldiers of Alexander, who, nevertheless, were against executing them, given that these plans would have required a large amount of money and it would have been almost impossible to execute them. Let us take a look at the plans Diodorus describes. The following were the largest and most remarkable items of the memoranda. It was proposed to build 1,000 warships, larger than Tyrrhemus, in Phoenicia, Syria, Cilicia and Cyprus for the campaign against the Carthagins and the others who live along the coast of Libya and Iberia and the adjoining coastal region as far as Sicily, to make a road along the coast of Libya as far as the Pillars of Heracles and, as needed by so great an expedition, to construct ports and shipyards at suitable places, to erect 6 most costly temples, each at an expense of 1,500 talents, and finally to establish cities and to transplant populations from Asia to Europe and in the opposite direction from Europe to Asia, in order to bring the largest continents in common unity and to friendly kinship by means of intermarriage and family ties. The temples mentioned above were to be built at Delos, Delphi and Dodona and in Macedonia. A temple to Zeus at Dium, to Artemis, Tauropolis and Amphipolis, and to Athena Cyrnus. Likewise at Ilium, in honor of this goddess, there was to be built a temple that could never be surpassed by any other. A tomb for his father Philip was to be constructed to match the greatest of the pyramids of Egypt, buildings which some persons count among the 7 greatest works of man. When these memoranda had been read, the Macedonians, although they applauded the name of Alexander, nevertheless saw that the projects were extravagant and impracticable and decided to carry out none of those that have been mentioned. These plans were very ambitious, which is why the accuracy of these plans has been questioned quite a few times. However, they reaffirm that Alexander wanted to unite even more, or wanted to conquer even more, and that the author of the source, but also the Macedonians, considered Alexander to be capable to actually conquer all of these lands that have been mentioned. And furthermore, these plans also reveal the political agenda of Alexander the Great, meaning that the Macedon king wanted to unite the different regions of his empire through mutual acknowledgement and to religion. This would have probably led to further unity of the different cultures in Alexander's empire. However, we will never know how these plans would have eventually turned out. But if Alexander actually executed these plans, he probably would have changed or influenced the world we know even more than he already does. Most of my videos at this time are pretty short, which is why I don't upload every month. However, I hope you were able to enjoy this video and have a great day.